Hello everyone, my name is Mireya. For this video, I will be sharing with you the Draw My Life video. I've been wanting to share this video with you guys for the longest time, but finally got time to draw and to editing. So here it is. I do want to point out before I get started that this video was originally created for my Spanish viewers, for my Spanish channel, which is Siempre Mireya, which is why you're going to be seeing a lot of Spanish on the words that are drawn, but I will be translating for you guys. This story starts in Mexico with a very handsome guy with green eyes and a very beautiful woman. They fell in love, they got married, and in 1982 they had their first son, which they named Andres, like his father. I was named Delia Mireya, Delia because that's my mom's middle name, and Mireya because that's the name of the nurse that was with my mom on the day of the delivery. I really love my name, and if I would have the option to change it, I wouldn't change it for the world. And the reason I say this is because there are people that don't like their name, but I really do. We were a small family, but a very happy family. Some years went by, and my dad had a very good job in the United States, so he decided to take his family with him. We crossed the border illegally, and it was very easy to come to the United States many years ago because the border or the fence had many entries, so there was so many holes where you could just walk through them, and that's what we did. We walked inside a McDonald's right after, which was very close to the border. My brother and I were inseparable. We would call each other mija and mijo. We loved each other so much. We used to play together all the time. We would share toys, and he is a little boy, so sometimes he would like to play rough a little bit with me, but I enjoyed any time that I had with him. And if he wasn't around, I would look for him, and if I wasn't around, he would look for me. In 1989, my sister was born. Her name is Patricia, but everyone calls her Papi. That's what we call her. And that's when I got a little bit jealous when my sister was born. I'll be honest with you guys. She was so cute, and she had stole all of the attention that was given to me. She's always been the center of attention, so I was jealous. My brother and I would play some silly games. One of the games that we were playing, he told me to pretend that I was a puppy, so he tied my foot onto the rope, and the rope was connected to the couch, and when I tried to chase after him, I hit my forehead, and I must have hit too close to my eyes because right away I got two black eyes. My mom used to love going to my brother's school because she would help out with projects. One of the teachers saw that I had black eyes and that my brother and I would have constant bruising, so they thought that my parents were physically abusing us, and they decided to send some investigators to our home. I remember we heard a knock on the door, and it was the police. They were trying to investigate if my parents would physically abuse us. After a long investigation, they found out that my parents weren't abusing us, that all those bruises were coming from accidents that we were having as kids, and we were bruising so easily. So the teacher decided to, or the investigators, they decided with the help of the school, they sent us to a hospital where they did many exams or blood tests on all of us, the whole family. I was too little to remember everything that happened. I was 4 years old. I know that they found something. I don't think it was a diagnostic, but it was an abnormality in our blood. I was terrified of blood draws. I didn't want my blood to be drawn. I was so terrified of injections. That's where my fear of injections came from. A tiny little girl being blood drawn or poked at very little, that was terrifying to me. I remember I would cry and I would tell my dad, "Dad, please, don't let them poke me anymore. Don't let them inject me." I was so terrified. I do remember that after we went to the hospital, we would go eat, the whole family, the teacher that was in charge of the investigation, and we would go in this van, and that's the van that the school provided. I'm not sure if our parents didn't want to tell us that they had found an abnormality in our blood. Maybe they wanted us to live a normal childhood. Years later, my mom decided to go back to Mexico because of health issues, and she really missed her parents, so we went back to Mexico. That's where I started first grade actually. When my teeth started to fall out, I would bleed a lot. I would bleed day and night, where I would soak my bed sheets and my pillowcases with blood. I would also get nosebleeds for days. This was going on constantly. In the mornings when I would wake up, I would have blood on my face and on my hair. I was a normal little girl that likes to play games and likes to play on the slide and on the swing, but I didn't know why I was getting bruised constantly. I was getting bruised for any minimal things that I was doing compared to other kids. I didn't know what was wrong. My parents would take me to a doctor, a local doctor in town, and he would give me a shot, vitamin K. I would feel good for a bit, so that did help with the bleeding. The school had a mobile service with the RV where they would give shots to kids, so I was terrified. One day the teacher said, "Who wants to get the shot first?" And I said, "I do, I do." But then when it was my turn, actually, I ran away. I ran to my brother's classroom and I told him, I locked the door and I told my brother, "Andres, Andres, please help me. They want to give me a shot." My brother was so embarrassed because there was these girls that liked him in the classroom, so he didn't say anything, but I'm pretty sure that if it was in his hands, he would have got me out of there and he would have rescued me. At least that's what I want to think. Two nurses actually saw that I had went into my brother's classroom, so they went for me and they took me back to the classroom. This was crazy. I know I made a big scene there. They took me back to the classroom. They sat me on the desk. One of the nurses grabbed my face and she turned it onto the side because she didn't want me seeing. Next thing I noticed, I'm like, wait a minute, are you guys done? That's it? I didn't feel anything. I was terrified of going to school, so I didn't want to go back. So in the mornings, I would procrastinate. I would help my mom with the house chores. I would start sweeping, and my mom would be like, "You got to go to school." So sometimes I would actually ditch school. I would hide in the closet. I would play Barbies, and I'm pretty sure my mom knew that I was ditching from school because I would stay in the closet for hours, but I'm pretty sure I didn't stay like more than 5 hours in the closet. So I'm pretty sure she knew, but she didn't say anything until one day I was walking to the store that was very close to the school, and I was at walking distance from the school and from my house. So the teacher was driving out of the school when she saw me one day, and she actually followed me home, and she asked my mom if I was sick, and my mom said I wasn't. So that was the end of it. No more ditching, and I was back to school. So once again, my dad wanted to take his family to the United States. He wanted his family to be with him. So he decided to take us once more. This was different this time. We crossed illegally, and this time we had to get up on top of a building with the help of some coyotes, and that's what we call the people that help immigrants cross the border. They helped us get on top of this building, and the other coyote was waiting for us on the other side of the fence. And I know it sounds crazy, but they kind of just threw us from one side to the other. But one of them was helping on the other side to catch us on the other side of the fence or of the border. This was in San Luis, Arizona. I remember that the day that they were crossing us over, it was close to a park and there was a baseball game, and I'm pretty sure that the people watching the baseball game, that's not the only entertainment or the only thing that they were watching. We lived in San Luis, Arizona for 1 year, and that's where I went to school in second grade. We used to live in a very tiny trailer. After that, my dad got a different job in Casa Grande, Arizona, and he decided to bring his family with him. The place where he worked, they were going to provide a home for us, a home for his family. It was a small home with one bedroom, but we were so happy because we were finally going to have a place to run outside in. We didn't have any neighbors. All we had were fields of cotton, acres of wheat, and alfalfa, and that's where my dad worked. I came to school in third grade, and I was very uncomfortable going to school because I would get bullied or I would get made fun of because of the way I dressed. In Mexico, I never got made fun of by the way of dressed. In Mexico, we used to use uniforms. I didn't have much clothes here, and my clothes didn't match. That didn't bother me much. What did bother me was that I would get made fun of because of my bruises. One girl said she would call me Delicacy. She said, "That's going to be your nickname because you're very delicate and you get bruised easily." I didn't have another choice but to laugh with her when she mentioned that. In the summer, I was chosen because of my good grades to go to college for kids. This was great. I really enjoyed going here because we would do many activities. This is where my passion grew for cooking. I learned to bake cakes and cookies and other goodies. They had an acting class and they would film us. One of the classes that I liked was swimming because in Arizona it's very hot here, but I couldn't go swimming because I had a lot of bruises in my legs and I didn't want anyone to know that I had the bruising because I didn't want people to think that my parents were physically abusing us. So I told the teacher that I was sick and I told my classmates that I was sick as well, so I couldn't go swimming. That same summer, my mom got a job. She was going to be working in the fields cutting chiles. My mom didn't want to leave us because we didn't have a babysitter, and she didn't want to leave us at home alone because there was a couple incidents that had happened at home where I almost burned the house down a one, two, or three times. So my mom decided to take us with her. This was very common back then because a lot of parents took their kids to work with them. I asked my mom if I could work on my own, and she said I could. We would have to fill up this bucket with chiles, and at the end of the day, they would give us one little card per bucket. It was $1, and at the end of the day, they would pay us every day. With my job, I was able to buy this watch that I really liked and I wanted for the longest time. And it was a watch that I was never able to ask my parents for, or I never wanted to ask them for this watch because I know they wouldn't be able to afford it, and didn't want to cause them sadness of me asking for something that they wouldn't be able to afford. I also bought myself some tennis shoes. Once school started, I decided to take my new watch with me. I took my watch off in PE class because I didn't want to ruin it or I didn't want any sweat to get in it. So I tied it on to my backpack. That day, when I was getting on the bus, we had to get in line to get on the bus to go home. There was a girl that actually took the watch out of my backpack and she actually put it on right away. When I saw her with the watch, I thought she had the same watch that I had. What a coincidence, I said. But one of a friend had seen when the girl had stole the watch from my backpack. She didn't say anything, and I didn't want to say anything because Liz, the girl who took my watch, she had two brothers that everyone was afraid of at school. With this incident that happened, I learned something very important. I learned the value of things in life. In June 1999, this summer was when my first period started. I'd like to apologize if this is too much for you guys to hear, but this is very important for me to share with you guys since it has a lot to do with my health issues. I fainted because I had lost a lot of blood. My mom told my brother that I would have to be taken to the hospital, so my brother carried me in his arms and took me on to his car and drove me to the hospital. I had lost 2 units of blood. That was a lot of blood to lose in your first period, but the doctor said they couldn't do anything because in order for them to intervene, I had to be at a hemoglobin of 7 and I was only at a 10, which the normal rate is 12. The doctors didn't know what was wrong with me. They just said that sometimes because being the first period that women lose a lot of blood. That's what they said. That's what the only explanation that they gave me. They sent me home right after. A couple days later, my period had lasted 20 days. So I was good for 8 days, no bleeding. And then I started my period once again, or my cycle had begun. This time I had lost more blood and I was very weak. I looked very pale. My lips were pale white, they looked transparent. I looked very bad, and I remember that my heart would beat very fast, and I just felt so weak. I would have to get blood transfusions for menorrhagias. Menorrhagia is a medical term for menstrual periods with abnormally heavy or prolonged bleeding, which is what I was having. One out of many times I had bled a lot that I had a hemoglobin of 4.3. I only had 1/3 of blood in my body. I was very weak. I remember when I would walk, I would feel like I was gonna faint. I would see cloudy. There was two different kinds of fainting that I would have. One time I fainted and I blacked out. I just saw everything black and I don't remember anything when I woke up. Another type of fainting was, or that I had, was when I was walking one time and I just saw everything cloudy, everything was foggy. When I was at the hospital, my mom had to go home and shower. I remember that a doctor came in and he sat down. He put a chair close to my bed and he said, "I need to talk to you. Where's your mom?" And I said, "She'll be back." He said, "I want you to talk to your mom about what I'm going to be talking to you about. I need you to explain everything to her. There's something that can put an end to all of this. You won't be getting sick anymore. You won't be needing any more blood transfusions. There's something that could end this all." He said you can get a hysterectomy. A hysterectomy is an operation to remove the woman's uterus. I asked, "Will I still be able to have kids?" He said no. Then he said, "It's something you can think about. Let me know if it's something you consider doing." This was happening constantly, going to the hospital and getting blood transfusions. One of the times that I went, I did not want to get a blood transfusion. I actually ran out of the hospital, not even running, but walking fast. I couldn't even run because I was so weak and so pale that every time that I walked to get up, my heart would start racing and I felt like I was gonna faint any minute, any second. I left the hospital and I told them that I didn't want to get a blood transfusion. I ran out of the hospital because I didn't want to get a blood transfusion. Well, I didn't even run because I couldn't run because my heart was racing and I felt like I was going to faint any minute, any second. I remember that the doctor came outside of the hospital with me. He ran outside and so did two of the nurses, and they told me, "You need to come back inside. You need to get this blood transfusion." And I told the doctor, "No, I don't want to get a blood transfusion because my dad owes a lot of medical bills, and I don't want this to be one more medical bill on the list." The doctor was very straightforward with me. He said, "If you leave and you don't get this blood transfusion, you're gonna die," he said. "Your heart is racing. You can get a heart attack any second now." After they had after they had mentioned all this, I ended up going back to the hospital. The nurses brought a wheelchair and they wheeled me back inside of the hospital. In January of 2001, my brother was gonna get married, and I was so happy. We were all so happy because my brother was gonna get married, even though I wasn't as happy at first because I had been bleeding for 20 days. But then I was so excited because the day of the wedding, my period stopped, so I was so happy. 3 months later, after my brother and my sister-in-law got married, they gave us They gave us some very exciting news that they were going to be parents. I was going to be an aunt. I was so excited, but I was even more excited when I found out that my nephew had been born on the day of my birthday, November 26th. What I'm about to share with you guys is something that I've kept private. I don't share this with anybody or I don't talk to anyone about this, but my parents were going through some rough times. There was many discussions going on at home. They were always arguing about things, and one morning I woke up and I saw my mom in the kitchen where she would be every morning. She was always making breakfast for us and she would make these delicious tortillas, flour tortillas. I saw this woman that I had always seen as a very strong woman, a woman that nothing hurts her. She has never been in bed. I've never seen her sick. I've never seen her cry. And this morning, I saw tears going down her face, and I asked her, "Mom, what's wrong?" And she told me that the heat from the stove had caused tears to roll down her face. I just couldn't understand how a woman could love with all her heart, but then again still be sad. During this time I was going to high school, there was a boy that asked me out. He asked me if I wanted to be his girlfriend, and I said yes. I didn't know that by accepting this relationship that more problems would be coming my way. I started getting bullied. I started getting phone calls to my house, calls that would tell me bad things about this boy, calls from different people that would always block the number to insult me. I would get phone calls to my house or orders of food to my home. And good thing that they didn't do home deliveries where I lived, because my dad worked in agriculture, and the place where he worked, they let him borrow a home for him and his family to live there. We used to live in dirt roads very far away from the small town, so the delivery guy would never come out to our house. So I guess that was a good thing, because one day I get a phone call from Pizza Hut, and they tell me that my order is ready, and I was so confused until the gentleman explained to me that I had made this big order of pizza, and I told him that I didn't. I know that my parents believed me that I never did this prank call because I hadn't gotten up to the kitchen all morning, and we used to have a phone that was connected to the wall, so it wasn't a phone that you could take anywhere. So my parents believed that I had not made that call. One disclaimer that I'd like to put out is that some names have been changed to protect the privacy of the individuals involved in this story. One disclaimer that I'd like to put out there is that some names have been changed to protect the privacy of the individuals involved in this trauma in life. Roselia, one of my bullies in high school that would try and make my high school life impossible, she would insult me in the mornings. I had no idea what was wrong with her or why she would all of a sudden just go off on me and cuss me out whenever I would walk by her. I didn't know what was going on. I was like, why is she treating me this way? I've never done anything to her. The people that know me know that I don't say cuss words, but one morning I had had enough. Like the saying says, the dog wasn't mean, but they sure made him be. So one morning I decided to confront her, and things did not go out of hand. We just changed a couple words here and there. And for a while, she stopped bothering me. I'm like, wow, this worked. Finally, she's gonna leave me alone. But it was only for some time. Roselia wasn't the only bully I had. Another one of my bullies was Marisol. One day I was eating breakfast so calmly in the morning in the cafeteria, and Marisol comes with a group of friends. She starts telling me things, cussing me out, telling me that she's gonna stick up for her friend. She comes up with this group of friends trying to start a fight. I ignored Marisol. I finished my breakfast. I threw my plate in the trash can, and my friend Carmen, she stood up for me. She said, Marisol, why are you trying to fight Delia? She's done nothing to you. And Marisol said that the fight was with me, or whatever, the confrontation, for her to stay out of it. So we just ignored them and we walked out of the cafeteria, but Marisol kept cussing me out along with a group of friends. A cafeteria employee came out and said, no one's gonna fight here. So I just kept walking to my school. I didn't mention I was in high school and Marisol was in junior high, as well as her group of friends that were telling me things, which I didn't know any of the friends that from that little group. I don't know if they were planning to jump me or to do something to me, but nothing was making sense because I'd never done anything to Marisol. I don't know why she wanted to fight me. All she could say is she was doing it to stick up for her friend. After the cafeteria employee came out, we went our own ways, even though she kept screaming a couple things here and there. I was honestly very embarrassed because I used to talk to the cafeteria employees. One of the cafeteria employees, I used to call her grandma because she had said I could call her grandma so many years ago, since I was in this school for 7 years already. Junior high and high school used to share the same cafeteria, which is why I said 7 years, 4 years of high school and my 2 years of junior high. I was embarrassed with the cafeteria employees. I was hoping they didn't think that I was the one causing all these problems. Time passed, the relationship ended. Jesus passed away and he went to heaven. Several months later, time went by and I thought Roselia was going to stop bullying me, because the main reason she would bully me was because of this boy. One day I saw her at Walmart and I couldn't see far because I had to wear my glasses. I couldn't see far at all, but I didn't like wearing my glasses because I just didn't like my glasses, so I would only use them when I would drive, and I would leave them in the car. So anyways, I was walking inside Walmart and I turned to my left and I saw this very pretty girl wearing a light pink dress, and she looked so cute with her pregnancy belly. She was about 5 months. When I turned to my left, when I saw this pretty girl with a pink dress, she starts cussing me out and says, "What are you looking at?" and all these other things. And I remember her sister said, "Why are you trying to cause a fight?" I honestly thought that everything was over with, and I didn't think that she would try to cause a fight or cuss me out. How could someone that's pregnant try and fight? I honestly thought things were done with and over, and she still was trying to cause a fight or at least an argument. So I walked inside Walmart and I ignored her. Several arguments later and time later, my parents decided to split up or break up. My dad bought us a mobile home. It was a very small mobile home for my mom, my sister, and I to live in. They didn't even tell us they were splitting up. They just split up and went their own way, and we packed our stuff and moved on to this mobile home. I think it's unfair for parents to split up. They don't even take their children into consideration. It doesn't matter how old the children are. All of this affects us, or at least it affected me so much, and I was already 16 years old. I had mixed feelings. I was happy because my parents were no longer going to have disagreements. They weren't going to be arguing. There wasn't going to be any fights. But then at the same time, I was sad. I was sad because we weren't going to be a family anymore. We moved on to our small mobile home, and at first, it was very difficult because we didn't have electricity and we didn't have water. So our neighbor Antonia, she would let us borrow an extension cord and we would hook up whatever we needed, the most important things necessary. I remember my mom used to have one of those electric stoves, the little ones that you connect, and she would make dinner for us on that little electric stove. We didn't have water, so we would have to carry water, fill up buckets of water. My mom wanted a bigger mobile home for my sister and I to have our own bedroom, so she finally found one and she decided to purchase it. For some reason, the new mobile home couldn't get to our house on time. When I got home from work, I remember I came home to an empty lot. Our couches were covered in plastic. Our clothes and other belongings were in bags. We had stayed with no home. We had become homeless. We weren't going to have a place to rest at night, a place to sleep in, a place to eat, a place to relax in. We didn't have a home. We were homeless. When I got home from work, I remember I put my arms on the steering wheel of the car and I started crying. It's so sad to remember, and just to think that you come home because you think you're going to be able to relax in your home, and you're homeless. There is no home. Our neighbor Antonia once again came to the rescue. She had a room that she let my mom, my sister, and I stay in. So that's where we would spend the night, where we would sleep at night. Several months later, our new mobile home had arrived. We finally had a roof over our heads. It wasn't new, but it was new to us. This mobile home or this trailer had a lot of defects, a lot of problems with it. We had to do a lot of repairs. We had to tear the carpet out, replace some windows. That wasn't as bad as the electrical problems. The whole house had electrical problems throughout the whole trailer. My mom had to replace several breakers because the light would go off. Sometimes we wouldn't have electricity throughout the whole house. We would only have electricity in the bedroom where I would sleep in. So my sister, my mom, and I would have to sleep in the same bedroom because we only had one small heater at night in the winter time. If you guys have ever slept in a mobile home, they are so thin that it's so cold during the winter, and in the summertime it's so hot. And we would have a cooler, but it wasn't enough to cool up the whole house. Here in Arizona, it gets really hot. We would have to sleep together at night as well because we only had a very small AC in one of the bedrooms, which was the bedroom that I would sleep in. I guess that wasn't as bad as when I would take a shower where I would get electrocuted. My sister remembers she would also get electrocuted as well. This trailer had so many problems. All I can say is that we were happy. We finally had a roof over our heads. During this time, I was going to college, and this is where I met the love of my life. I met Jorge in my first class in college. I remember I was late that day. First, we were really good friends. One day he asked me out. He told me he would take me to eat lunch. That day in the car, he sang a song to me. The song said, "Fall in love with me. Give me your love and love me the way I do." The song said, and after the song was done with, I didn't know why he had sang that song to me. He wasn't telling me anything else, so I was just thinking and thinking. He never said a word, and I didn't either. Days later, we went to the city fair, and that's where he asked me out. He asked if I wanted to be his girlfriend, and I said yes. He also asked for a kiss, which I told him to close his eyes, and I gave him a kiss on the cheek. That was our first kiss and the first memory of us as boyfriend and girlfriend. Several months later, I got really sick. I went to Mexico and I went to see the same doctor that I had always seen as a child. I told him that I had diarrhea, and I'm sorry if this is TMI, too much information that I'm sharing. But again, this has to do with my bleeding disorder, with my health, and with this drama, my life, with the story of my life. So he gave me a shot, and after that, I started bleeding a lot. I got really sick right away. After we came back to the United States, my mom took me to the hospital, and I was in ICU, intensive care unit. The doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. They didn't know what was causing all this bleeding. After several blood transfusions, I wasn't getting any better. To my surprise, a father from a Catholic church walked in and he asked if I wanted to receive communion. The father gave me communion. After he left, I remembered looking towards my left. On my left side, there was a window. I remember looking towards my left and saying, "God, I can't handle this anymore. This is too much for me. This sickness is overpowering me. I don't think I can move on anymore." There was a very bright light that entered my room that day. I felt a loving hug, a love that you can't explain. The presence that I felt, this love was so deep that I had no doubt in my heart that this was Father God. This was a miracle. The doctors didn't know what was wrong with me, and all of a sudden I get better and I get transferred to a different room. Some more time went by and Jorge decided to ask my hand in marriage. Well, my mom had met Jorge before, but my dad didn't know him. My dad had never came into our mobile home. Jorge's parents asked for my hand in marriage. We got engaged, and time later, we got married. We got married in 2006. It was such a beautiful wedding in Guerrero. I remember my mother-in-law went to Mexico a few months before to get everything ready for the wedding. I remember I told Jorge, all I want are rose petals at the church when we walk in and when we walk out. To my surprise, the day before the wedding, I saw that they had filled buckets and buckets of rose petals. I was surprised. I'm like, are those all for the wedding? I just couldn't believe it. Our wedding was a traditional wedding, a wedding filled with surprises and traditions that I had never seen before. I was so happy because I was getting married to the love of my life. I was also happy because my parents were with me, my dad and my mom and my sister. They had flew all the way from the United States to Guerrero to be with us the day of our wedding. My mother-in-law, my father-in-law were also there, my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law. Time went by, and when Jorge and I were dating, we decided that we wouldn't have kids right away. I had to get answers. During this time, I was working at a school and I had really good benefits, so I kept trying to go to different doctors. I needed answers and I needed to know what was wrong with me. My doctor, Nelson Lim, he told us that he would recommend us to a specialist in Scottsdale. So he sent us to Mayo Clinic. This is a research clinic where they only send some special cases, and I was one of them. I got some labs done, and my labs had to be sent to Rochester, Minnesota, which was very far away from here. I finally had gotten a diagnosis. I remember that the doctor had a smile on his face. He said, "You had Glanzmann thrombasthenia." Instead of crying, I was also so happy. I was happy that there was finally a name to my condition, to all of this bleeding. I knew that it couldn't be caused on its own. So, what is this Glanzmann thrombasthenia? Glanzmann thrombasthenia is a platelet function disorder that is caused by an abnormality in the genes for glycoproteins. And the way that I explain it, something easily, is that I don't have the paste or the glue that helps stick my platelets together, which is why I have prolonged bleedings, menorrhagias, nosebleeds. Every bleeding that I've ever had is caused by this. This is a hereditary disorder, so I got this from my parents, or at least they have the carrier gene. I remember my doctor telling me that this was part of his studies in medical school. He said that they explained this bleeding disorder, but he said that he had never met anyone with it. And he said, "You are like a unicorn. They say that unicorns exist, but you don't see them. And that's how you are, because this bleeding disorder was something I learned in medical school, but no one really has this, and you do. This is not common." I was his first patient with this bleeding condition, or this bleeding disorder. This was very hard to diagnose because I had to get several blood work, and most of my blood work would come out that I have normal platelets. It's just that they had to do further testing to find out that I actually have this bleeding disorder, and that's the reason why my blood test had to be sent to Rochester, Minnesota. Time was going by and I really wanted to get pregnant. I wanted to become a mother. It wasn't happening on its own, and I was getting really stressed out. During this time, I saw something that was YouTube, and that's when I decided to share videos with you guys, because this was a distraction to me. I wanted to share nail videos and hairstyles. This was something that was taking away time from all the stress and all the depression from trying to conceive. First, I opened this channel, Mireya 5. I opened it in 2008, and in 2010, I decided to film my first video. Then I opened my Spanish channel, which is Siempre Mireya, in 2011. That same year, I also posted my first video in Spanish. I was so happy filming videos. This was making me so happy, and it was a big distraction from all the stress that I was having. I loved making videos. I loved reading your comments. I was becoming obsessed with becoming pregnant. We went to go see a fertility specialist in Phoenix, Arizona. She said that everything looked normal. So after that, we did go see another doctor in Mexico, just because during this time I did have insurance, but I had a very high deductible, and it was very expensive to see a doctor here in where I live. It had become an obsession. So after a while, my husband and I decided that we were going to stop trying to conceive, because it was just too much for us. Every month that you are not becoming pregnant, it gets an obsession, and I think it stresses you out even more. Just trying to conceive, and when you're not getting the results that you want. I was working during this time at a tax office, and we decided to take a break off this trying to conceive for a while. After my job was done, because this job that I would do was seasonal, in March we decided to go see the doctor once again just to get everything checked, just make sure everything was okay. This was my yearly checkup. The doctor said he would do a pap smear first, and I told him that I haven't had a period for 10 weeks. He said, "We'll do the pap smear first and then we'll do an ultrasound." Once it had gotten time to do the ultrasound, he called my husband into the room. He told me, "Congratulations, you are pregnant." And I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "Congratulations, you are pregnant." He said it once again. I couldn't believe it. Tears started rolling down my eyes. When we walked out of the clinic, Jorge and I gave each other a hug, and we just couldn't believe that I was pregnant. I said, "Look at me, I don't even." When Jorge and I walked out of the clinic, we gave each other a big hug. We were so excited we were going to be parents. At 14 weeks into my pregnancy, we decided to go to At 14 weeks into my pregnancy, we went once again for an ultrasound, and this was the time when we found out that we were having a little boy. We were so excited. We were going to be parents of a little boy. At 18 weeks, 4 weeks later, the doctor had made another appointment for us. So we went to go see another ultrasound again. We were so happy because we were going to see our baby for the second time. We gave the news to our parents that we were going to be parents. They were so happy. At 18 weeks, once again, I went for another ultrasound. This is when the gynecologist found out that there was an abnormality in my. This is when the doctor said that there was an abnormality with the baby or with the uterus, the placenta inside the uterus. At the 18 weeks, he told me I had placenta previa, which is a condition where the placenta lies low on the uterus and partially or completely covers the cervix, which means you would have to deliver by C-section. You can't have the vaginal delivery when the placenta is covering the cervix. He also told me that I had placenta abruption. The placenta is a structure that develops in the uterus during pregnancy. Placenta abruption occurs when the placenta separates from the inner wall of the uterus before birth. Placenta can deprive the baby of oxygen and nutrients and cause heavy bleeding in the mother. I was so scared, so terrified. I remember when I walked out and I was paying for the consultation, I just couldn't contain myself anymore. I started crying nonstop. I was so afraid that I would lose my baby, this baby that we had wished for so long to become parents. I then came to my doctor in the United States and I explained everything that the doctor in Mexico had told me. He said that the doctor in Mexico had told me all this to scare me. He said this is not possible, that there could be a diagnostic this early in the pregnancy. So he referred me to a specialist, which, to my luck, the specialist was 2 doors away from the clinic where I used to go. We met Dr. Schoenhaga, which she's a perinatologist. It's a specialist. She told us that things weren't going well, that we might have to deliver our baby sooner than expected. She said that there was a possibility that if the baby had to be born early, that the baby would not be able to see or that the baby would be deaf. Every time we would go to a doctor's appointment, I would leave crying in tears. I was so sad. I didn't want anything to happen to my baby. Dr. Schoenhager had recommended that we go to the hospital as soon as possible because the baby could be born any minute. There was a risk that the baby could lose oxygen any second and the baby could die in my womb. So she suggested we go to the hospital at 28 weeks. We went to Tucson Medical Center where we would be monitored day by day. We would have daily NSTs and the doctors would be keeping a close eye on us. There were so many specialists there, so many high-risk doctors there. Many of the doctors had their own opinion. Some doctors wanted me to deliver as early as 30 weeks. Another doctor wanted me to deliver at 33 weeks. But Dr. Schoenhager said no. The baby's growing. We don't know how this is happening if the placenta is not in good condition. The baby's breathing and the baby has been all the testings that we're doing. So let's just wait. Let's just give it more time. And that's what happened. They wanted to be truthful with me. They said, even by you being at this hospital under doctor supervision, you know that you could lose your baby, that your baby could die any second. He could lose oxygen and there's nothing we can do about it. We're going to try and save your life, but we don't guarantee that your baby could survive and that your baby's going to make it through this. After so many ups and downs, many doctors couldn't believe I was still there. Some would take vacation, and when they would come back, they're like, she's still here? Wow, she's made it this far along. My baby and I, we made it to 39 weeks. He was born on December 1st, 2015. We named him Jorge Dorian. Jorge like his dad, and Dorian, which has the meaning gift of God. And that's what he is to us. He is our gift from God. I don't know what the future holds for me, but one thing I can say is that I'm happy. I'm happy with all the bad things, with all the bullying, with all the sad things, with all the mean people that have been in my life. I'm also happy with all the people that have brightened my life, that have helped me. All the people who have been there in my ups and downs, I want to thank them so much, and I'm happy with everyone that has been a part of my life, because all this has made me who I am today. I've been through so much in my life, ups and downs, good and bad. One thing I can tell you is that God has never left me. Pray and believe, because miracles are real. I don't know what kind of struggles, what kind of problems are in your life. You could have lost a job. You could have just been in a breakup. I don't know what troubles your life, but I do want to tell you this, that God never leaves you. He will never leave your side. It's us. We're the ones that leave God. We're the ones that walk away from Him. All you have to do is open your heart to God. He's always going to be there, and you will see that miracles will start happening in your life. You're going to be living a different life. You will notice how incredible He will change your life. All you have to do is trust in Him. And just to finish this off, I would like to say that there's always going to be that light at the end of the tunnel. There's always going to be morning after all this darkness that you've had in your life or whatever you're going through. Thanks again for watching. Take care, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.